Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin from Florals.com and today I have a tutorial for you all. I have an example here of what we'll be looking at. Did this layout a couple of weeks ago, and essentially I took my own handwriting, so this is how I write, just like that, and I made a stencil and then I was able to hand stitch it. Today's example, I'll show you how to do the process of your own handwriting, but I'm going to show you a stitching example using shapes as well. So you can do whatever shape you'd like, and you can do whatever font you would like. So if you're into hand lettering, you can do some cool styles and then do your own thing. So I'm going to set the example aside, but there's a whole blog post on this layout if you want to know more about this specific layout. But what you'll need for this tutorial essentially is here. We'll start with the basics. You're first going to start with a plain sheet of scrap paper. This happens to be printer paper, and a pen. Then from there you'll also want some sort of washi tape or removable adhesive. Then you'll want your piercing mat and your piercer. Mine happens to be from Amy Tangerine. Then you'll want your thread and your needle to stitch your 12 by 12 paper or whatever size you're doing. So to create the example piece, what I did was I took a scrap piece of paper, as so, and I just wrote out what I wanted to have on the layout. So I write in cursive a lot, so what I did was just go like this. So that's the word final. So essentially what I did was I kept doing this until I got a word that I actually liked. But what's great about this is you can even use a pencil if you'd rather, if you get confused by lines more easily. Was I could just go over it and fix it, so that end was a little weird, so I made it better. And then I did a piece that I thought was great, and then I cut it down. So I'm not going to do this one, so I'm not going to cut it out, but you essentially cut it out, and then you'll tape it onto your paper where you'd like it. So I'm going to do a star today because that's an easy one to do, and I want the full aspect of the star. I want the crossover lines and everything. I wanted it a little wonky, I guess. I don't really know. I don't have a layout planned out, but I know I can use stars much more than words that I just put on a page. So you can also do this technique for regular words. So if you just write like in non-script, so in print, you can write out a word like final. The only problem here is your stitches will not be connected. So you'll have to stitch up, and then here, and then here, and then here, 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 here. So you can also stitch words that are in print, and the same thing. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this star. I usually rip my paper, but I'll cut it for this tutorial. So you cut out your template here. You just need a little bit on some of the sides. So you don't need too much on excess. And then you're going to take your background paper. So this one I used a little teal color, and this time I am using a black with an orange grid pattern. And say I want the star, I'm trying to remember, I'll probably want it here. So I get it angled. You can even cut it down just a little bit more if you'd like. Then you're going to take your washi tape and tape it down in a couple of spots. You want to be able to make sure the washi tape comes off cleanly without ruining your background paper. Now for this example that I've been showing you, I realized what I wanted to do, so I wanted to stitch in my own handwriting. And then I got out my pictures so I could see how far I wanted to space them out. Since I don't have that today, because I don't know what layout I'm going to be making with this beautiful piece of paper, but I know that stars are fairly simple geometric shapes to work with. So I tape that down on two sides. You just need to make sure the paper won't move. Then you're going to bring in your piercing mat, so I have this little mat, and then the star. And essentially what you're going to do is you're just going to follow the line. So if you had a script one, what you really need to be careful of is the intersection points. So for my L, for example, you go around once and you come back through the same point. You most likely want to space out the 2 points. So you'll put one to the left of the cross, one to the right of the cross, and then when you're coming back down, one to the left and one to the right, typically. Because if you do not, let's see if I have an example on this piece of paper. You can see here that the O doesn't line up properly with the M. That was because I put it through the wrong hole, but that's not what I'm looking for. So for the L here, what I did was I actually skipped a spot. You know what, it doesn't really matter, but for my experience, like for this F, I go through the same point about 3 times, and that really put damage and a lot of thread through that one hole. one pierced hole, so I recommend not doing that. So here on the intersections, I'll show you. So you're gonna take your paper piercer like the one I have here. This is like a miniature one. I know more normal people have like full ones, but you're just gonna start at one point. So I'm gonna put a hole there. And then you wanna make sure they're equally spaced along your design. So this is a little bit harder with fonts, I think, because there's a lot that have curves, and curves are hard to estimate. Because you could even do with this one, you could do a thread all the way down to here if you want. It all depends on what your style is. I know that for my font ones as well, I tend to skip some of the lines I actually made and like rework them. So I'll go outside the lines sometimes to make it more straight or anything like that. So you're just gonna keep going. Make sure you're on your piercing mat the whole time. Try not to put holes too close together, and make sure you push all the way through since you have to go through 2 layers of paper. So I'm just following the design of the star. It doesn't have to be super perfect because stars are not perfect. And as you can see, my line doesn't even really meet here, but I'm just going to freehand it. I always recommend making a stencil though, because there's nothing hurting you by making a stencil. I know that with a lot of crossing like this one, it can be kind of confusing to put, when you're sewing, your actual thread through the paper. But when you're said and done, that's why I also recommend for skipping the holes. And without this template, it also is very hard to realize which holes were for what item. But if you keep your template nearby, you can always reline it up and realize which ones look like they go with it. So once you're done, I went all the way around my star. Simply peel this up. Now a couple of mine did not go all the way through, so if you realize that now, you can fix those up. Or sometimes it just looks like it didn't go all the way through, but it did. But it can save you some headache later. So you can set your stencil aside or recycle it. You probably will not use the same one again. Then essentially you can just start stitching. I have a small piece of thread here because I did not plan on stitching the entire thing on camera. And I just messed it up already, but that's okay. So when I do stitching, I tend to use 2 layers of embroidery stitch at a time, but I know a lot of people who use 1. I just think it looks more fuller that way, but that's just a personal preference. So you just stitch it like you would any stitch. So the up and down, all the way around, and then you'll eventually have a full star. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. Eventually I'll probably have a process video up using this background maybe. I wasn't sure what piece of paper I wanted to put holes in randomly, but I decided this one was pretty neutral and easy to use, and I figured a star, easy to use. So essentially you're just gonna keep stitching all the way around and follow your pattern. So here, I'm wondering if that's even picking up on camera. There are little holes there. I can't tell if they are, but all of the pierced holes, you can clearly tell it's a star. And if you know your own handwriting well enough, you'll be able to read it even before you stitch it. So that is the tutorial for today. I usually use white embroidery thread, but this will work with any color, obviously. And like I said before, this will work with any writing style. You can do regular fonts, prints, some decorative fonts if you're into some lettering. But that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to give this a thumbs up. And if you try out this technique, please let me know. I'd love to see your layouts or projects. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye!